Probably the greatest goalkeeper ever.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What would it be worth in today's transfer market?
Over 100 mil.
Yeah.
Met the great man himself, just called me Bill. What a great player, but also what a great fella he was. Papers one morning, I read Pat Jennings might be available for transfer. The worst day of my life, couldn't believe it.
Pat Jennings is seen as a universal legend, loved by both Arsenal and Tottenham. But what if that nice guy persona was all an act? What if he was fake? He is the rare breed of player idolised by both sides of the North London rivalry. But behind the calm exterior, his career was marked by intense, bitter moments. We found a list of 6 players Pat Jennings supposedly absolutely hated. Today, we're digging into this hate list to find the truth. Let's start with Alex Stepney. The date was August 12, 1967. The stage was Old Trafford. The event was the Charity Shield, pitting Manchester United against Tottenham Hotspur. This was the traditional season opening contest, a highly anticipated match between the league champions and the FA Cup winners. The game would end in a 3-3 draw, with both clubs sharing the trophy. But this match is remembered for one moment above all others. It remains the only time a goalkeeper has scored in the Shield's history. Early in the game, Jennings took the ball in his hands. He launched a massive punt downfield from his own penalty area. Some described it as a 120-yard drop kick. The ball travelled the length of the pitch. It took a freak bounce in front of Alex Stepney, the embarrassed keeper at the other end. The ball sailed over Stepney's head and nestled into the net. The goal was so unprecedented that it caused confusion. Commentator Kenneth Wolstenholme took half a minute to work out what had happened before shouting that Jennings had scored. For Stepney, it was a moment of pure, unavoidable professional humiliation. The match featured legends like Bobby Charlton and Dennis Law, but none of their goals are remembered like this one. It was a freak accident that defied all logic and probability. In the history of football, goalkeeper goals are rare enough. But for one keeper to score against another from his own box, with a simple clearance that takes a wicked bounce, is virtually unheard of. So did Jennings hate him for this? At all? The evidence shows the exact opposite. Jennings referred to his counterpart with pure sympathy, calling him poor old Alex. This is the goalkeeper's code. It's empathy for a fellow keeper's humiliation. Goalkeepers share a unique understanding of the loneliness and vulnerability of their position. They are the lone eagles of the pitch. They understand the bizarre misfortunes that can befall them in ways that other players simply cannot. When asked what Stepney said to him, Jennings replied that he couldn't repeat what he said. This wasn't a threat. It was exasperated, humorous disbelief from a fellow professional who had just been publicly embarrassed by a 1-in-a-million freak occurrence. The relationship was not defined by hate, but by a shared empathetic joke about one of football's most bizarre goals. It's one of football's most bizarre goals, but it sounds more like a shared joke than bitter hatred. What do you think is the strangest goal in football history? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this look into football's hidden rivalries, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next video. Let's move to Ray Kennedy. This was not a bizarre comedy. This was pure professional tragedy. The date was May 3rd, 1971, the final day of the league season. Arsenal travelled to White Hart Lane, needing a win or a 0-0 draw to win the league title. They trailed Leeds United by 1 point. Due to the complexities of goal average, only those 2 results would secure the championship. A score draw would hand the title to Leeds. The atmosphere was beyond tense. A crowd of 51,992 crammed into the stadium. Tottenham were determined to deny Arsenal the chance to emulate their double from 10 years earlier. They were desperate to prevent the ultimate humiliation of their rivals winning the title on their sacred turf. Stakes could not have been higher. This was the North London derby at its most intense, the league championship hanging in the balance. For 87 minutes, Tottenham and Pat Jennings held their rivals at bay. Jennings was in splendid form. He produced first-class saves. He denied John Radford with a brilliant stop. Tottenham had their keeper to thank on numerous occasions for keeping the match scoreless. A 0-0 result would have been enough for Arsenal to win the title, but at least it would have denied them the glory of a winning goal at White Hart Lane. Jennings was putting on a masterclass performance. Every save brought roars from the home crowd. Every Arsenal attack was met with desperate defending and world-class goalkeeping. Then, in the 88th minute, disaster struck. An Arsenal attack saw John Radford's shot blocked. George Armstrong retrieved the ball and chipped it back across the goal. The 19-year-old Ray Kennedy climbed to head past Jennings via the underside of the bar. The goal was an incredible finale for Arsenal. For Jennings and Tottenham, it was the ultimate professional devastation. The last 3 minutes were a formality. The whistle blew. Pandemonium erupted as Arsenal's players and fans celebrated winning the championship on the sacred turf of their rivals. What better place than White Hart Lane, the commentary noted. Did Jennings hate Kennedy? No. There is no evidence of any personal animosity between the two. Hate here was purely for the situation. It was for the traumatic, gut-wrenching result, not the player. Pain was so palpable that even Kennedy, the hero, felt it. Kennedy said later that it was the longest 3 minutes he had ever known. As Tottenham came back, he remembered thinking that perhaps it might have been better had his header not gone in. The proof of no personal animosity came 6 years later. In 1977, Jennings would make the shocking move to Highbury, play alongside some of those former rivals, including men who had been part of that 1971 squad. That he could make this transition and be welcomed demonstrates his ability to separate the agonising results of on-field combat from the men he competed against. This 1971 match was his biggest connection to Arsenal at the time. It was a professional trauma. Hate was for the loss, not the player. Next, we have George Wood and John Lukic. This hate wasn't from external rivals. It came from teammates who were brought in to replace him. The cases of these two goalkeepers are different from the others. They demonstrate a unique kind of professional pressure. When Jennings moved to Arsenal in 1977, Tottenham believed he was nearing the end of his career. He proved them wrong, becoming a Highbury stalwart. But by 1980, Arsenal began planning for the future. They signed George Wood from Everton as a possible replacement. For a year, Wood served as the second choice keeper. The dynamic changed in January 1982. Jennings was injured. Wood stepped in to deputise for the injured Irishman. Wood's performances were not those of a temporary stand-in. Such was the quality of his performances that he remained number one. For nearly a full year, Jennings, the legend, found himself out of favour as Wood claimed the starting spot. Wood's form was so strong that he was selected for the Scotland squad for the 1982 World Cup. This was not a personal feud. It was pure professional competition, which Wood was winning on merit. However, Jennings's career was not over. Displaying the marvellous temperament he was known for, didn't complain. He didn't agitate or cause problems in the dressing room. He bounced back and regained his starting place by December 1982. Wood, having lost the battle, was transferred to Crystal Palace in 1983. This first challenge was a warning shot, a reminder of his professional vulnerability, but one that Jennings ultimately and impressively overcame. It showed his mental strength and determination. But the battle with time was relentless. In July 1983, Arsenal signed John Lukic from Leeds United for £75,000. Unlike Wood, Lukic was not a possible replacement. He was signed with the clear intent of replacing the goalkeeping dignitary. Even then, the transition wasn't immediate. Jennings held on, but the pressure was mounting. In March 1984, injury to Jennings gave Lukic a run of 4 games. The definitive turning point came on Halloween night 1984. Jennings, a League Cup match away to Oxford United, played horrifically poorly. Arsenal was knocked out. A single horrific performance was the catalyst. Jennings was set aside. He briefly stole the goalkeeping gloves back for 3 more fixtures, but Lukic came back into the team and became a constant fixture. Jennings played his final league game for Arsenal on November 25, 1984, against Sheffield Wednesday. He had been eventually replaced by John Lukic as the first choice keeper. The process was merciless. This wasn't about hate. It was the merciless but inevitable succession that every athlete faces. The process was purely professional. The lack of hate is proven by what happened next. Jennings was not cast out. He was given a farewell match at Highbury, fittingly against Tottenham, in May 1985. Furthermore, he was welcomed back to Tottenham, who allowed him to train with their reserves to maintain his fitness for the 1986 World Cup. Hate wasn't for Wood or Lukic. It was a battle with his own ageing body, a fight every athlete eventually loses. both Wood and Lukic were simply doing their jobs, trying to establish themselves as number one keepers. Now let's talk about Mario Kempes. This name on the hate list is the most fundamentally flawed. It represents a complete inversion of the facts. The setting was the 1980 European Cup Winners' Cup final at the Heysel Stadium in Brussels on May 14, 1980. It was a moment of double heartbreak for Arsenal. The match came just 4 days after their nightmare at Wembley. Shocking 1-0 defeat to second-tier West Ham in the FA Cup final. This was their last chance to salvage a trophy from a gruelling 67-match campaign. Their opponent was Valencia, a formidable side managed by Alfredo Di Stefano. They featured the World Cup winning striker Mario Kempes. Kempes was a known threat. Jennings had been forced to deny him with a sharp save earlier in the match. After a draining 120 minutes, the match ended 0-0. It would be the first European final ever decided by a penalty shootout. The pressure was unimaginable. Arsenal had already lost one final that week. They could not afford to lose another. Mario Kempes, as Valencia's star player, stepped up to take the first crucial penalty. Hate premise suggests a moment of failure or humiliation for Jennings. This is where the hate premise collapses. Jennings, facing the World Cup winner, guessed correctly. Photograph of the moment is iconic. Jennings saved the first spot kick. He won his personal one-on-one duel with the star striker. In the individual battle that defines a penalty, Jennings was victorious. This was a moment of personal triumph, not a source of hate. The hate, or more accurately, the heartbreak from that night came because Jennings was unable to stop the rest of Valencia's penalties. Arsenal's own Liam Brady and Graham Rix both failed to convert their kicks. Arsenal lost the shootout. The query confuses team failure with individual interaction. Jennings did his job. He won his personal battle with Kempes. Any negative emotion from that night would be directed at the collective failure, the exhaustion of the 67-game season, and the pain of losing 2 finals in 4 days. It would absolutely not be directed at the star striker, whose penalty he heroically saved. Far from being a figure of animosity, Kempes was a world-class opponent whom Jennings personally bested in one of the highest pressure moments of his career. Finally, we come to Brian Clough. The rivalry with manager Brian Clough is the definitive proof against the hate premise. Clough, the iconic Nottingham Forest manager, had a well-documented obsession with Jennings. He would curse the goalkeeper for being unbeatable every time his team played against him. Their rivalry is crystallised in one of football's most famous anecdotes. The story has been retold by many, including Stuart Pearce, who heard it from Jennings himself. The setting was a match at Nottingham Forest's City Ground in 1978 or 1979. Jennings, playing for Arsenal, went to take a goal kick at the notoriously volatile Trent End. As he placed the ball, a supporter threw a dart out of the crowd. It stuck in his forearm. Jennings' reaction was typical of his marvellous temperament. He didn't make a big deal of it. He simply pulled it out of his arm, put it in his glove bag, and, at half-time, calmly asked his manager for some antiseptic. His manager, Don Howe, was outraged, went to see Clough after the game, furiously complaining about the disgrace of his fans physically assaulting the goalkeeper. Clough at the time was reportedly a little bit non-committal. The true nature of the rivalry was revealed 2 or 3 days later. A letter arrived on Nottingham Forest notepaper. The content was pure, unadulterated Clough. It read, "Dearest Pat, I have absolutely no sympathy for you whatsoever. Every time you come to the City Ground, you stop everything. It is no surprise to me you stopped the dart on this occasion. Lots of love, Brian." This letter is the antithesis of hate. It's the highest form of respect, delivered via sarcastic genius. Clough, by making a joke of it, simultaneously diffused a dangerous assault and paid his rival the ultimate compliment. He was saying that Jennings was so unbeatable that not even a projectile dart was a surprise. The final irrefutable proof? For years afterward, Pat Jennings carries this letter around with him in his breast pocket. You don't cherish and proudly display a memento from a man you absolutely hated. It was a treasured item from a revered antagonist. So was Jennings fake? No. Hate list is a complete misinterpretation. The list wasn't about animosity. Stepney was empathy, a perfect expression of the goalkeeper's code. Kennedy was agony over the result. not the man who scored. Wood and Lukic were the battle with time, the inevitable displacement by younger talent that Jennings handled with professional dignity. Kempes was a personal triumph, a penalty save that Jennings won in his individual duel, and Clough was humorous. Profound respect wrapped in wit. The 80-year-old story isn't one of hate. He is the only man idolised by supporters of both Tottenham Hotspur and Arsenal, a status that proves his career was defined by universal acclaim, not animosity.